This tutorial is for first grade, Module 6, Lesson 26. In this lesson, we're going to use the read, draw, write process for solving word problems. The first problem says Toni is reading a book with 16 pages. Maria is reading a book that has 10 pages. How much longer is Toni's book than Maria's book? I'm going to start by writing an answer statement to help me focus on the goal of the problem. The final question says, how much longer is Toni's book than Maria's book? Well, the answer to that would be Toni's book is blank pages longer than Maria's. Now let's fill in our tape diagram with information from the problem. If I go back to the start, it says Toni's reading a book with 16 pages. Maria is reading a book that has 10 pages. Well, since Toni is reading a longer book, we're going to put his name next to the longer tape diagram. So we'll put Toni, and then Maria will be by the shorter tape diagram. Okay, we also know that the book Toni is reading is 16 pages long, so I'll fill in that information. And we know that Maria's book is 10 pages long, so we'll fill that in. The question then is, what is the difference between the two books? How much longer is Toni's book than Maria's? So this is the question. Now, if we look at the two tapes, if they were the same size, then this portion of Toni's tape would also be 10, because that's how long Maria's tape is. Well, if this portion is 10 and the whole tape is 16, then this part, the more than part, must be 6, because 10 plus 6 make the 16 pages. That means that Toni's book is 6 pages longer than Maria's. And again, the dotted box always shows us the difference between the two tapes. So we'll say Toni's book is 6 pages longer than Maria's, and we can get that by taking the number of pages in his book minus the number of pages in Maria's book, and we get the difference between the two. 16 minus 10 equals 6. The next question says, Elle built a block tower using 14 blocks. Toni built a tower by using 5 more blocks than Elle. How many blocks did Toni use to build her tower? Well, again, we'll start with our answer statement. Since it wants to know how many blocks Toni used, we'll say Toni used blank blocks. Now let's fill in the tape diagram. Since Elle built a tower using 14 and Toni used 4 more, then we'll give the longer tape to Toni and the shorter tape to Elle. We also know that Ella's tower used 14 blocks, so we'll fill in that information on her tape. Now, if the two girls had made towers that were exactly the same, this portion of Toni's tape would also be 14. But Toni used 5 more blocks, so the part of her tape that goes beyond where Ella's tape stops would be the 5 more blocks. So if they had used the same, it would be 14, but since Toni used 5 more, I can find out how many she used by just adding the pieces of the tape together. 14 plus 5 is 19. That means that Toni used 19 blocks. And the way we found that was we took the 14 blocks that Elle used plus the 5 more that Toni used, and we got 19 for our final answer. Question number 3 says David walked 10 minutes to get to Patty's house. The next day, Patty took a shortcut and walked to David's house in 8 minutes. How much shorter in time was Patty's walk? We'll answer the question statement by saying Patty's walk was blank minutes shorter than David's. Now let's fill in our tape diagram. Since Patty's walk was shorter, we'll assign her name to the shorter tape. And that means we'll give David the longer tape. We also know that it took David 10 minutes to walk, so we'll fill that in on his tape. And that it took Patty 8 minutes to walk. So here's the portion we need to figure out. This is the difference between the two tapes. Well, if David's whole tape is 10 and this portion of Patty's tape is 8, then the missing piece must be 2, because 10 is made up of 8 and 2. So the difference between the two times would be 2 minutes. And we found that by taking the 10 minutes that it took for David to walk, minus the 8 minutes it took for Patty, and the difference between the two is 2 minutes. So Patty's walk was 2 minutes shorter than David's. Let's look at one more question. This one says, Lee read 16 pages in a book. Kim read 4 fewer pages in her book. How many pages did Kim read? We'll answer the statement first. We'll say Kim read blank pages. And now we'll fill in our tape. So Lee read 16 pages. Kim read 4 fewer. That means that Lee would have his name next to the longer tape since Kim read fewer than Lee. So we'll put her name there. We also know that Lee read 16 pages. We'll fill that in. And that the difference between the two amounts was 4. Since Kim read 4 fewer pages, that's what I put in the dotted box. That's the difference between the two. Now, to figure out this portion of the tape, we know it's going to be the 16 that Lee read minus the 4. 4 fewer than 16 will go in this box. Well, I know if I have 16 and I take 4 away, that gives me 12. And you can see how this looks like a number bond. 16 is made up of 12 and 4. 12 is 4 fewer than 16. So Kim read 12 pages. And again, to find that out, we'll take the 16 that Lee read, we'll take away the 4 fewer, and we'll get the 12 pages that Kim read.